Let's start with Jorgen Strand Larsen. Is he edging towards being a Palace player? Mark McAdam, some breaking news.
He is getting closer. This is a huge deal for Crystal Palace. The reason why it would potentially be a huge deal, this would be a club record transfer fee paid for a player. You have to remember they actually broke their club record at the start of the window when they signed Brennan Johnson. Steve Parish, the executive chairman, looks like he's going to splash the cash again, because our latest information here at Sky Sports News is that Crystal Palace are close to an agreement with Wolves for Jorgen Strand Larsen, worth £50 million as a total package. That's 45 million, with 5 million in potential add-ons based on performances. We said earlier on today there'd been no formal bid, but this deal is now getting close, and it's just a matter of time before we get an agreement completely agreed between the two sides. So really significant news. This would obviously point potentially to the departure of Jean-Philippe Mateta, but our Crystal Palace sources are actually saying, no, we want both players. This is not a case of one in, one out. We want to strengthen our striking department, and we believe Jorgen Strand Larsen is one of the players to do that. We also know that Leeds were at the table for Jorgen Strand Larsen. They had an offer rejected earlier on in the window, so there is a lot of Premier League interest. We were saying that Wolves valued the player at around £40 million. The fact that they're going to get a deal now, which we understand to be worth 50, shows incredible business by them. We know that Newcastle nearly tried to sign him in the summer as well. A man that's got one Premier League goal so far this season, on the verge now of a £50 million deal to Crystal Palace.
Kevin, you have cast your net across Europe, looking for someone for Crystal Palace as well, and I know you watch a lot in the Bundesliga and in Italy as well, and France. Is this a deal that makes a lot of sense? Is he Premier League proven, given the lack of goals this season?
Well, I think he is, because you look at last season and he was scoring goals, making goals. You wondered when he was scoring goals in La Liga with Celta whether he could make the leap. I think he showed that he could do that last season. This season's been really, really difficult for everyone at Wolves. They made such an awful start, and he's had injury problems as well. So I think clubs are looking at him, looking at what he's done in the Premier League. It's not a long track record, but it is rare to find somebody who can score goals in volume, and he was able to do that.
And let's not forget that Oliver Glasner, got a lot out of Jean-Philippe Mateta in terms of the player that you saw, Kevin, when he was at Mainz, was a very different player. And all right, it's not going to be Glasner for a long time at Crystal Palace, but if someone can get him back to the purple patch that he had when Vitor Pereira came in at Molineux, that is the player that they want.
I think that's a really important parallel, actually, because if you look at the guy that was at Mainz, I was gobsmacked, really, when he made that leap to the kind of player that we now know, because he was always very streaky at Mainz. He'd score a hat-trick, then he wouldn't score for a few games, and you'd wonder, is this a guy that can really do it at Premier League level? Glasner has brought the absolute best out of him. He's had a phenomenal spell.
And just to reiterate Mark McAdam on the Mateta situation, is there a world when they could actually keep Mateta and Strand Larsen going into the final few months of the season, into the summer?
Well, I said about the Crystal Palace PR noise, they're not going to turn around and say publicly, yes, now we want to sell Jean-Philippe Mateta because we're bringing in Jorgen Strand Larsen. They are going to put out those noises that they want to keep both players because they don't want to devalue any possible money that they could get for Jean-Philippe Mateta. We know that Jean-Philippe Mateta is open to a new challenge. He'd like to play for a side that are in and around the Champions League or potentially could get to the Champions League. It feels like now, for him personally, this is the right moment to move on and try a new challenge. He's got 18 months left on his current Crystal Palace contract. You've already said it, Oliver Glasner's got the best out of him at times, and he's played probably some of his best football at Crystal Palace, won the FA Cup. He's been a part of a really successful era at the football club. You speak to the fans, they'd probably turn around and say, right, actually, he doesn't want to be here anymore. It's time to let him go. We cannot have unhappy players at our football club, particularly at the moment where we're going through what is essentially a real transition with head coaches and players departing. And we need to rejuvenate this club, and we need players that want to play for Crystal Palace and be a part of things here. So, yeah, it's an interesting knock-on effect. The noise is, it's not about one in, one out, but you suspect that now Jean-Philippe Mateta and his days at Crystal Palace will be coming to an end.
Would that not be crazy, Kev, to sell Jean-Philippe Mateta to essentially a relegation rival, given that West Ham have really picked up the pace as well down the bottom?
It's dangerous, really is, because if you sell him to Forest and he goes on the kind of streak that we've seen from him in recent seasons, and that takes Forest above Palace in the standings, then that financial deal is not going to look so clever anymore. So there'd definitely be a big element of risk there. But again, you just don't know whether in new surroundings with a new team, Mateta would be able to hit those kind of levels. It is a question mark.
Just one final quick thing. Crystal Palace are very well run,
Yeah.
and their recruitment has been exceptional. And when they let players go, often it means they've got someone else they feel can be even better. And that's what historically has happened, certainly recently. So maybe they're doing something that we don't know, and they've got things going on in the background.
That's what the Palace fans will be hoping on the manager front as well, right?